generation. A generation.
A generation.
A generation.
A generation of godly unorthodox leaders. Positioned for global impact. CTCFC. New generation.
Please help me make room for Pastor Dupe Adebanjo, the senior pastor of Foursquare Gospel Church Light Arena, as he comes to share the word of God with us. Pastor Dupe, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Good evening, everybody. It's an honor to be part of the program this evening. Our topic this evening is very fascinating: swim against the tide. And without making any form of assumption, I think we are believing everybody can swim. And so because for you to swim against the tide, we are simply just taking it for granted that you can swim. However, the reality of life is that swimming is not a natural instinct to us. We have to learn to acquire to be able to swim. So swimming itself, we have to learn. How much more swimming against the tide? I've seen this natural phenomenon to the fact that every one, as soon as we're out of the comfort of the womb, one of the first reality that hits us is that life is not as comfortable as we would have wanted. And even if as a child, you choose to cooperate with the discomfort that life is offering you, be rest assured that there will be a nurse that will spank your bum in ensuring that you cry. So it invariably says that life is not as comfortable as we would expect it to. And whereas some have learned life skill to enable them cope with difficulties of life, some others have chosen to just watch as the tide of life carries them anywhere, and they will just flow in that direction. And so there are 4 basic questions that I think anyone who wants to understand the challenge of life must answer. I consider them 4 cardinal stones that can help us a great deal to stabilize before attempting to raise resistance against what life is offering. And those 4 things that has helped me are simply what I called: 1, origin; the second one, meaning; the third one, morality; and the 4th one, destination. These 4 questions and our ability to answer them a great deal will impact our ability, or for me, it's what shows firstly that we can swim, and therefore it gives us the inner strength to go against the tide life is offering us. The first one, origin. If you don't understand the essence that you are from God, and you do not acknowledge God as your creator, then it becomes difficult for you to recognize purpose or know why you are here. Because if you are just a product of chance, an atom, then it will be difficult to find meaning in life. And so we know that we are created in the image of God. And so for us answering the question of origin, we do not believe in chance occurrence or that we are just a random product of an explosion. Scientists will never tell us what is even responsible for the explosion. And so we answer the question of origin and say God is our creator. Our life is not chance. 2, meaning. Meaning speaks of why are we here? Because if there's no direction to our life, it becomes difficult to find our bearing. And every one of us must be able to answer, why am I on earth? We may not fully answer that question, but it must be a desire, a pursuit that we want to discover because it gives life meaning and it helps us to keep us on track. The third thing is morality. Morality speaks for us how we determine right and wrong. What do I consider right? What do I consider wrong? Because our ability to determine the compass by the help of God help us to know what we can do and what we cannot do. Our understanding of morality gives conviction to life, and therefore we do not live by opinion, we live by conviction. And so when you can answer the question of right and wrong, and I dare say it is not relative, there is right and there is wrong. And God is the moral giver. It's not circumstance, it's not society, it's not our present experience. We acknowledge God as the moral giver. And the last one is destination. And destination speaks of hope of eternity. It puts in our hearts where we believe that we will spend our life when our journey ends here on earth. You see, if we just think life is whatever and all we do here on earth, you find out that we might just live our life anyhow because we believe that everything starts and ends here. But when there is hope of eternity in your heart and in my heart, it gives compass and direction to our lives because we know it doesn't just end here. You know, in the 16th centuries, there's always war between the English and the Norwegians and the Danish. And for every battle, they always win the English. Why? The English people ascribe to Bible and they follow it, whereas these Norwegians are people who are idol worshippers. However, they believe in afterlife that one of the way of getting to their own heaven is that you must fight in battle and you must have the honor of being killed in battle. And so they go into battle with the English, embracing death and thereby never dying. The English go to the war, who ordinarily believes in hope of resurrection, and they are afraid of dying, they end up dying anyway. And so your understanding of destination will give compass to our lives. Why did I start this way? I want to register in our hearts and in your heart that these cardinal points help you to swim. And so just as Pastor introduced to us Proverbs 24:10 just now, that if we fail in the days of adversity, our strength is little. And so it presupposes the fact that whether we like it or yes, there are circumstances that we will face that are not pleasant. You know, in my early days as a Christian, I've always been of the view that Christians don't have troubles. Christians don't have any form of challenge, that our lives are always blissful, because that's how they introduce Christ to us, that if you embrace him, he takes care of all your challenges. Not that they are lying, but I realize that problems of life create resistance against advancement. When we ignore this problem or we undermine the effect of this current of challenge of life, we'll realize that before too long, it takes us farther away from our starting points. However, when we recognize that there are challenges and there are problems, it equips us with the paddle of life in which we can swim against the current of life. And so in examining this topic this evening, I call our attention to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, from verses 8 all the way to about 10. He was talking about the fact that we are pressed on every side. And so it's not one person experience. We are all pressed on every side. But this is it. We are not perplexed. You see, the challenges of life differs from person to person. However, we all have challenge of life in common. The peculiarity of our individual challenges differs, but it does not negate in common for all of us that we have challenge of life. And so quickly, I want to identify in handling this topic 4 areas that I think we should consider when truly we want to swim against the tide of life. And the first one quickly would be our past experience. Past experience. I started ministry fully being a teens pastor. And I recall on this particular day that this young boy called me very late in the night. And he was sobbing and crying. And when I was able to calm him down, he acknowledged this simple fact, which is that himself and his mother became tipsy. And he knew he slept with his mother, even though the mother denied it never happened. And in wanting to inquire, he cut the line, and I never knew who that person was. And when you meet people, you will get to know that there are different stories that people have had in their past, experiences that it will be like something better kept a secret than revealed. However, the truth is that there is a past experience for every individual. And how you handle this past experience will determine a great deal how the tide of life will impact our advancement. And so can I just make a small submission to you that it's too late to go back into your diapers. We need to let go of whatever is the misgiving done to us or we have done to another. This past experience, if we do not submit it to God, put us in the place of bondage, a place of guilt, and we find it difficult to navigate life. Absalom, the son of David, was a wonderful man, handsome, and very wise young man. When his younger sister was raped, he could not get over that past experience. The king knew of the matter, but did not do much in resolving it to his satisfaction. He was in the bondage of that past experience to the point that he plotted to take over the kingdom from the king. And it drove him to the point that he ultimately lost his life. Can I plead with someone this evening that no matter what has been done, no matter who has hurt you, and no matter what you have done as a person too, can you find forgiveness with God and let us move on? Feeling entitled to our pain does not change the equation of our lives. We must be committed to growing and moving beyond that past experience. The second thing I will call our attention to is we must swim against the tide that life will constantly offer us, is our present circumstance. One of the things you and I cannot deny is the economic reality that we are facing right now. I can say to you for a fact that some of us did not vote for our present leader. But the reality is that he's our leader right now. And some of the things we are going through in the country right now is our reality. Can I submit to you that even when you are not responsible for your circumstance, you are primarily responsible as to how you react in that circumstance? We are pressed on every side. But my reaction is this: I am not perplexed. I am crushed. My reaction is, I am not destroyed. And that's a choice you and I will have to make, because the present circumstance that I'm not responsible for, I am primarily responsible for my reaction in it. So we're not product of the instincts. We cannot allow this present circumstance to make us to be suicidal. We can't allow this present circumstance to start acting irrationally. You see, we are responsible people. And the meaning of responsibility is that we have respondability. Respondability is what makes us responsible. Not product instincts. We do not act based on our feelings. We do what is right as against how we feel. That is who we are as people of faith. We allow the Spirit of God to inspire us. You know, when I got this topic and preparing for it, Wednesday would have been my 20th wedding anniversary. However, the reality is that it did not go beyond 17 years. And I recall in this circumstance, God needed to assure me that He's my source and He's my sustenance. I was married to a woman that was doing well, making career progression. And it was getting to that stage where she personally told me, and she said, you know what? Give me another 2-3 years. I'm going to be an AGM. And when I become an AGM, I don't even want you to work again, because my salary is so much that we cannot even spend it all by ourselves. So only thing I want you to do is to preach. And I will look at you. It gives me a lot of satisfaction seeing my husband preach. And I truly was looking forward to that experience. However, God needed to tell me that I am the one who will supply all your needs. I don't know what your own present circumstance is. I don't know whether it's in your emotion, you've invested in a relationship and you don't know where it is going to. See, can I tell you for free that the enemy of our soul is only interested in one thing, with all the attacks he brings our way, that we lose the confession of our faith, that we stop believing in God. That is the end point. And so we must know that there's no circumstance that should be strong enough to separate us from the love of Christ. There is no betrayer that we should allow to be too big for us to walk away from faith. I plead with you that your present circumstance, though, will want to constitute itself as an obstacle. One of the ways you swim against the tide of this present circumstance that wants us to drift into the current of life is to answer this simple question, that these too will pass. It will pass. See, the suffering of now can never be compared with the glory that will be revealed. And so no matter what we are going through right now that we think, wow, this is overwhelming, the Bible tells us that whatever you and I are going through is common to men. And so don't feel entitled and think yours is the biggest issue. I've mentioned the first thing by calling our attention to the past experience of life. There is a newness in God, the one who daily loads us with benefits. And I've talked about our present circumstance. The third thing that creates resistance to advancing in the right direction, that we must, by all means, navigate and swim against the tide of life, is the people around us. We can never live in isolation, and we always find ourselves in a community. And where there is more than one person, propensity to conflict is very high. Where there is more than one person, propensity to betrayal is a reality. Where there is more than one person, Influence will play out itself where there's more than one person. Politicking is most likely to happen. But in all this, we must answer this simple question that they are frailty to humanity. Frailty to humanity. The best of men are still men at their very best. All of us will acknowledge, in that 2 Corinthians chapter 4 from verse 7, it says we have this power in earthen vessel. And why? So that the excellency of power can be of God. There are people who will misunderstand our intentions, no matter how good they are, and there are people who will never value it. If we perpetually live our lives to please people, I'm not asking you to be rude. I'm not asking you not to be considerate of people that God has brought our way. You remember the story of Joseph the dreamer, when his father sent him on an errand, and the word of his father was simply, bring me backward again. When he went on that journey, the Bible says a certain man met him when he was meandering, just wandering about. And he said, I heard them say. And he was able to be given the direction to the place where his brothers had gone to. And so we need people in our life because they will be pointers to the right direction for life for us. And again, in the course of journey of life, we will meet people who will want to drag us down and discourage us from our purpose. Because we can't deny the fact that influence is a necessity in life. And so you must ask yourself this: who are the people surrounding you right now? With whom have you built an accountability relationship? Who are the people that you cannot pretend and you cannot lie to by being pretentious about your action? If you don't have such people in your life, it means you are a very arrogant person. You harbor accountability. It's a symptom of pride. When we're not able to account for our actions, make ourselves accountable for the actions that we are taking, we are very proud. And we find out that it will take us, that the current of life will make us to drift downwards. And we find ourselves not having the capacity to swim against the tide of life. We need people. And may we find ourselves in the right company of people who will propel us in the right direction. The fourth thing I will say, remember, the first is our past experiences. The second one is what I call present circumstance. The third, the people in our lives. And it's so easy to recognize these three. The fourth and the most dangerous thing that can make us follow the current of life to our detriment is ourselves. Yes, me, and you. See, I wonder at times when people pray for their enemies, at times we, by our actions, are our greatest enemies. So when we are asking them to fall and die, you may have to be careful, because probably you are talking about yourself. There are tendencies, attitudes, notions, ways of doing things that invariably are constituting to us not getting the best of what life asks for us. And we must go into the order of creation, wherein we find ourselves naming the issues of our lives. Until we're ready to name some of these issues of our lives, we will be building excuses rather than building competence. We must get to that point in our lives where we will look ourselves. Why is the perfect law of liberty existing for us? He says for us to make necessary adjustments. When we look into the mirror, the essence of looking into the mirror is to make adjustments, correct things. But you see, when you look into the mirror and you can give excuse for everything about your life, you find out it will be very difficult to swim against the current of life and the difficulties that comes with it in order to break the barrier and move forward. You know, some of us alienate ourselves to people who have advanced and have done that than us. We think they don't know what we are going through. And we always find out associating with fellow strugglers, staying in the place of miserable consolation. See, those people that we consider up there and cannot identify with what we are going through, some of those people legitimately overcame some of the life challenges that we are going through right now. And so you must look at destructive pattern that you yourself, you are engaging in. Destructive pattern that are affecting your health. You see, when I lost my wife, I was weighing almost 110 kg. And I went to see someone who said to me, "Do you really care about your children?" And I said, "I do." And the man said, "Do you want to be there for your children?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Can I be truthful with you?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And I said, "You won't be there for them. You're going to upset them and you're going to make them cry." And I said, "Why, sir?" He said, "You are overweight." It struck me like a thunderbolt. He said, "You are overweight. You're going to have complications and you won't be there for them unless you make drastic life changes." You see, I'm not saying it lies within us only to make our lives what it should be. I believe that by strength shall no man prevail. However, there are certain things that have been revealed to us that we must commit to. And in the course of taking some simple precautions, in the course of changing some things and modifying some things about my life, my BP without medication moved from 170/100, and it is in the region right now of 130/70/80. And the ultimate goal is to be able to look at it constantly and it gets to 120/80. See, no matter how gifted you are, breath is what reminds us that there is still an assignment to be fulfilled. And so if we damage our body and we refuse to give a good account and be good stewards about our body, the current of life will carry us. We will desire to do good, but we'll find out that we are not actualizing it. What is your spending pattern? How do you handle resources? I agree with you that it's not enough, but you and I must cultivate the culture of saving before spending. Most of the time, we spend before we want to think to save. And when we do life that way, we realize that we will not. We must be intentional about our emotional engagement, because there will always be alternative. There will always be someone somewhere that will want to lure us. I know that stolen bread is sweet, but when it gets down there, it becomes stones. I wouldn't want to go that road. And so I'm pleading with you that I have seen great men with great potentials lost everything, name, and the call of God even upon their lives by falling, by not having moral integrity. And so I'm asking of you that if you must swim against the tide that life is offering us, you must be responsible for the grace that God has placed in your life. You remember that story in Luke chapter 15 as I begin to round off right now. The Bible says that young man came to his senses. And you and I must come to our senses. We must ask ourselves if truly we want to attract some certain kind of people. How are we conducting our lives? A young man wants to attract a lady in a committed relationship, and he says he doesn't care about how he appears. He's scruffy. He doesn't dress well. We're not asking you to dress expensive. And he says, you need to discover the grace that is inside of me. No, you will find out that such person, the current of life will keep carrying them in a certain direction because they are not making efforts. As I round off this evening, I want you to know that your experience and the circumstance of life that you have gone through, no matter how real, it cannot circumvent what the word of God has said about you. Your experience, no matter how real, cannot bat universal conclusion. Don't allow isolated issue make you to come to a universal conclusion. And so, what are the things in our past? Hand it over to God. What are our current circumstances? Hand it over to God. What are the people in our lives? Hand it over to God. And most especially, I say to you that I know whom I've believed, and I'm persuaded he can keep what has been committed into his hand against that day. And put yourself under the care of God. And as he reveals things to you and I, let's be committed to making the necessary adjustments so that we can be well equipped to swim by the strength that God will give us against the tide that life is offering us. Thank you, and God bless you.